In this lesson we are going to be learning how to factor by grouping but using additive inverse. So we're going to start out the same way. Notice these have 4 terms to them, so you can't factor by factoring a trinomial because there's 4 terms, not 3. And it's also not a difference of squares. Difference of squares have 2 terms, remember. So here we go. 4 terms. You're going to group the first 2 together. In this case I color-coded them so they are green. You're going to look at what you can pull out. Each term has at least a b squared in it, so I can pull that out. And then b squared times b makes b cubed, and b squared times 8 makes 8b squared. Okay, now, when we look at the kind of orangey part here, your goal is to see what you can factor out of there, okay? Now, here's the deal. You're going to bring down this negative. You can kind of think of it like that. Bring down the negative, and then figure out what you can pull out of there, okay? So 3b and 24, they are both divisible by 3. Now, you've got this negative right here, okay? So you really need to figure out negative 3 times what gives you negative 3b, okay? Negative 3 times what gives you negative 3b, and that would be b. And then negative 3 times what gives you negative 24, and that would be positive 8. So these negative signs kind of mess people up sometimes. Okay? So right now I'm just going to make this a little bit neater. You don't have to rewrite this, but this is where I'm at. Notice I still have the same thing in both parentheses. Really what I did is I pulled out a negative 3, okay? I have the same thing in both parentheses. Both the green and the red have a b plus 8 to them, so I will pull out that b plus 8 out of both terms. If I pulled the b plus 8 out of here, what I have left in green is b squared, and if I pull the b plus 8 out of the red, what I have left is negative 3. And that's how this one factors. Okay, very similarly here. Again, you're going to look at what you can pull out in the green. 24 and 27 are both divisible by 3. So I can pull that out. And then both terms have at least an x squared to them. Alright, so 3x squared times 8x would give me 24x cubed. 3x squared times 9 would give me 27x squared. Then, when you look at what you can do here, remember your goal is actually to have the same thing in the next parentheses. So I know I'm going to have a parentheses here, and I want to figure out what I can pull out. I can see that I want this to be positive 8x. If that's positive 8x, this better be positive 8x. Now, if you're looking at negative 8x minus 9, there's really not a number you can factor out of negative 8x minus 9. 8 and 9 are not divisible by the same thing, and you can't pull any variables out either. But you can pull out a negative, I'm going to kind of put that 1 right there. You can pull out a negative 1. So negative 1 times 8 would give me negative 8x, and negative 1 times positive 9, oops, I forgot my x, times positive 9 would give me negative 9. Okay? Lots of you are not going to write that 1 right there, so be really, 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 really careful about that. There is a 1 right there that's not written. Now you can see that both parentheses have, both the green and the red, have an 8x plus 9 in them. So you're going to factor out that 8x plus 9. If I factor out the 8x plus 9 out of here, what I have left is 3x squared. If you take the red and you factor out the 8x plus 9 out of the red, be careful, a lot of people want to say you have nothing left, but you actually have this negative 1 right there, okay? And if you did not write the 1 in front, you might forget to remember that you have negative 1 left. But this is how this one factors. Alright, kind of similarly here. So if I look at the green, I want to see what I can pull out of here. And when I do that, 14 and 18 are both divisible by 2. X cubed and x squared, I can pull an x squared out of there. Okay? So 2x squared times 7x makes 14x cubed. 2x squared times 9 gives me 18x squared. Okay, now notice I have positive 7x right here. So when I go to do my next parentheses, I better start with positive 7x. So I want to look at what I can pull out of here. And when I pull this out, I am actually, so that that first term can be positive 7x, I'm actually going to pull out a negative 3. Okay? Notice this is negative, which means you're typically going to pull out a negative. So negative 3 times 7x gives me negative 21x. And negative 3 times negative 9 gives me 27. I want you to realize that in these parentheses here, you do not have the same quantity. One is 7x plus 9, one is 7x minus 9. Some people think that they can fix the problem by simply changing this to a plus sign. But if you change that to a plus sign, then this is what happens. 3x times 7x gives me positive 21x, and it needs to be negative 20x, so I'd have to switch that. And positive 3x times negative 9 gives me negative 27, and it needs to be positive 27, so I'd have to do that. Okay? Switching it does not matter. I do not end up with the same thing in both parentheses here, so this is actually not factorable by grouping. Alright, another one here. I will take this. 12 and 8 are both divisible by 4. Each term does at least have an a in it, so I will do that. So 4a times 3a gives me 12a squared, and 4a times negative 2bx gives me negative 8abx. Okay, next term. Be careful here. Next term, what I'm going to do, I don't really like this to be negative right here, so I'm going to factor that negative out. Okay, 15 and 10 are both divisible by 2, and then each term has at least an x in it. But I am actually going to factor out negative 2x, and we're going to see what happens here. Okay, negative 2x times, I'm sorry, I don't want to pull out a 2, I want to pull out a 5. Negative 5x times 3a gives me negative 15ax. Negative 5x times negative 2. Negative 5 times negative 2 gives me positive 10. And then you need a b, and you need one more x. Okay? And now you can see that you have, in both the green and the red, you have a 3a minus 2bx. If I factor it out of the green, what I have left is 4a. If I factor it out of the red, what I have left is negative 5x. Okay? And that's how this factors. The last one. Here we go. Out of the green, I can pull out an n squared. So if both terms have at least n squared. So n squared times n gives me n squared. Now be really careful, super duper common math mistake. People go, well, I already pulled the n squared out, so I have nothing left. But remember, you have to go n squared times n gives me the n cubed. N squared times what would give me negative n squared, so I need a negative 1 right there. Okay? Then, out of here, you can factor a q out. I don't like this first term to be negative, so I'm actually going to factor negative q out. Negative q times n gives me negative nq. Negative q times negative 1 gives me positive q. Again, you have to figure out what you would need to multiply to get this last term back. So don't leave it blank, make sure you put the 1 in there. Okay? And then, of course, both terms have an n minus 1 in them. So So if I pull an n minus 1 out of there, I have n squared, and if I pull an n minus 1 out of there, I have negative q. And that's how this factors.